Here we go. Okay, so we're recording. Morning, it's Lorna Wagner here from Maritime UK Solent, and we have an SME special talking about, it's recording a transcript. I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. Right, I've stopped that. That's good. Talking about support for SME business in the Solent. We're recording this session so it can be used as a resource on the website and so that people can either listen to it again or can access afterwards. We're joined with two speakers this morning. One is Richard Armstrong from UK Finance, and the other is Lisa Hutchins. Here's Jane joining us. The other is Lisa Hutchins, who works for SERCO and who's going to talk to us about funded training opportunities for SME business. So we are recording, and I think, Richard, can we start with you? Can we do the UK export finance stuff first? So if I hand over to you, do you want to take over control of the screen?
I'm going to endeavour to, yes. I mean, hopefully, is the presentation up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you can all see it. Excellent. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Richard Armstrong. I'm one of the export finance managers at UK Export Finance. So just going to talk you through about who we are and what we do and how we support businesses across all sectors in all segments. So we're UK Export Finance. We're part of the Department of International Trade. We're a standalone entity. We're a standalone department, I should say, within the Department of International Trade. Now, if I can just get these slides to work. Yes, excellent. So we've been around a long time. We're one of the first in fact, the first export credit agency to be established in 1919. So we've been around for over 100 years. So part of the Department of International Trade, work very closely with Her Majesty's Treasury and also with private lenders and credit insurers. So we're very well connected into the private market. And very importantly, our role is to complement the activities of the private sector. We don't compete. So how do we support businesses? Well, we can facilitate finance to overseas buyers of UK goods and services. And we do that through guarantees to banks principally. We also, and this is really, I think, probably more relevant for this particular talk, is we can provide guarantees to banks to help UK exporters with their working capital needs, and that can include bond support. And we also have an export credit insurance product. So I will go through and just explain this a little bit more in detail. But so what's our mission? I think every business nowadays seems to have a mission statement. So ours is to ensure that no viable UK export fails for lack of finance or insurance from the private sector, while operating at no net cost to the taxpayer, and that's an important caveat. So we have to underwrite viable businesses. We have underwriting criteria, which is not really different to that of the private sector. So we can support across all sectors. We can support goods and services. So it's not just manufactured goods that we're supporting. We also recognise that there's a lot of service industry within the UK. Our support extends across SMEs right the way through to the UK multinationals. We're open for cover in over 200 countries, and we can also provide support in local currency. But before I go a little bit into the detail, I think just to help a little bit to put us in perspective. So in the last financial year, which ended in March, we provided £7.4 billion worth of export cover. There's an estimated 72,000 jobs supported on the back of that. And I think, which is extraordinarily topical at the moment in terms of sustainable projects, is that we were ranked the #1 ECA for supporting sustainable projects worldwide. So if I can so that really is just a little bit of a background of who we are. So I said at the outset that I'm an export finance manager. So there's about 500 of us in the department in total. Most of it is based on underwriting. There's 24 of me running around the country, covering different patches. So my particular patch is Hampshire and Surrey. I live in Surrey, but often down in Hampshire. Just so almost effectively like a relationship manager or a first point of contact. So let's talk a little bit about our products. So you see there'd be 3 columns there. On the left-hand side, buyer finance. That really is the big ticket project type financing, often multi-billion contracts where we are supporting overseas buyers of UK goods and services. It's not an area I'm going to focus on for this presentation because whilst it does impact SMEs, I think the middle column particularly is more relevant, and also the right-hand column. So what support do we give to UK exporters? Well, it's mainly in the form of export working capital support, and that comes ostensibly under our general export facility, but we do have 3 schemes. There's the export working capital scheme, the general export facility, and the bond support scheme, and I will touch on each of these briefly. I have a slide on each, and then I'll talk about our export insurance cover. So let's start with the exporter guarantees. So the export working capital scheme. So this is risked on the exporter. Any facility is provided through your bank. And I think that's very important. So bank intermediation is the way that we deliver our products, and our product is a guarantee. So it is the bank who says, yes, we like the business, we're prepared to support them, but often they'll have a capacity constraint, and they will come to us for our guarantee. We can share the risk with the bank for up to 80%. I think particularly for the export working capital scheme, this is very useful where this is a contract specific support. So if you have a contract as an SME, you have a contract overseas, the financing is specific to the contract. It's not general working capital, although I suppose you could argue that it is, but it is essentially support for an individual contract. We can also look at supporting exporters under what we call a tier 1 supporter. So if you're an exporter or you're a UK business, say for example you're selling to let's say a big business in the area like British Aerospace, you know that BAE Systems are going to use that in exports, even though your sale is within the UK. We can look at supporting tier 1 exports on a contract by contract basis. So if we move on to the bond support scheme, again, this is where we recognise that. So in the case of export working capital, that's effectively a loan. The bond support is a contingent liability, so it's where an exporter is required to give a bond, whether it's a bid bond, a performance bond, or maybe an advance payment guarantee. Typically these will be issued by banks, and banks maybe will look for 100% cash cover. So what our scheme seeks to achieve is to replace that need for cash cover, because the bank, instead of relying on cash, can look to us for a guarantee for up to 80% of the bond value. So we see certainly, so these are 2 sort of distinct schemes, and they are all contract specific. Now, that in itself can be quite limiting, because often businesses do have a more general requirement. They don't necessarily want to be reactive to a particular contract. They like to put a facility in place ahead of a financing need. So having listened to exporters and to banks, last year we introduced them our general export facility. We've seen significant uptake of this particular product, and it's one I'm just going to focus on just for a little while. I've got a couple of slides on this. Again, it works the same way as the export working capital scheme. Bank puts in place a facility, it's risked on the exporter, and the bank looks to UK Export Finance to provide for up to 80% of risk on the lender. Now, it doesn't have to be, it could be maybe 50%, but 80% is the maximum. But crucially, the support is not linked to a specific export contract, and I'll come on to that in a second. The maximum guarantee period that we cover is 5 years, and the maximum facility size under this scheme is 25 million. So for just a bit of just a bit of levity, this is known as Jeff internally. There is another scheme which kicks in at 25 million and is really for the bigger corporates, and we call that our jumbo Jeff. It's actually called, I think its real title is an export development guarantee, but that's how we refer to it internally. But this is very much how we look at supporting, say, the SME sector. So having said, it's not specific. Cover is not linked to a specific export contract. What we do is we've defined what is an eligible exporter to access the scheme. And the eligibility criteria are very simple. If you're looking at a business's turnover, at least 20% of annual turnover in any one of the last 3 financial years, if that is derived from UK export sales, then the business qualifies. That's a reasonably generous definition, I think, of exporter. But if a business can't pass that test, then we can look back and say, okay, have your export sales represented at least 5% of your annual turnover in each of the last 3 consecutive financial years. So we've built this product around three key themes: accessibility, flexibility, and certainty. So this really is just a bit of a guide of how we've been using the scheme. So we provide banks with delegated authority. So where a transaction fits very well-defined parameters, the bank will automatically know that they are going to get cover, and it makes the whole process a lot simpler. So we typically, and we do this for amounts up to 5 million. So if 80% is 5 million, then in this particular example, we can cover a facility, or an exporter can access a facility for 6.25 million, and we would provide up to 80% of that cover. I said at the outset that we move across all sectors. There is naturally a caveat here. There are certain controlled sectors, so we look very closely, particularly at defence. I think pornography and tobacco are off bounds, and there are very strict controls and a policy around oil and gas. The government has a policy that we are not able to support oil and gas projects, but there will be some exceptions, for example, for safety equipment, or indeed equipment which has a proven environmental benefit. We've simplified our eligibility rules. As I say at the outset, automatic cover can be up to 2 years, but if a business need is, say, 5 years, then that will be looked at by our underwriters. So that will be done on what we call a manual basis. One of the key points we took away from discussing with exporters and banks was the need to be flexible. So the use of the facility, it is simply determined by the eligibility criteria of the exporter. So we don't say, look, every dollar that's or every pound that's advanced has to be used in exports. It can be used across the whole of the business, and it also covers a wide range of trade products. So it can, this will depend on how your banker decides to implement the scheme. But it is possible to support import loans and export loans, so that's on the debt side. But also we can look to support the bonding, so contingent liabilities that can also form part of the cover under the scheme. We discussed the amounts. So anything over 25 million is a different scheme, and if you're looking at amounts over 5 million, then again there'll be a manual process, which tends to add a bit of time because our underwriters will look at the underlying risk on the exporter and the purpose. So The good thing is that we can actually approve a facility in advance of the need arising. The risk is entirely on the business, so so there's no need for agent checks, which was the case where there's contract-specific support. And also, once our support is there, it's full faith and we call it a full faith and credit guarantee of the UK government. So you know you've got the government standing behind you. So this is really in terms of the way in which UKEF supports small businesses which are exporting. Just critical to note that there is bank intermediation, and we would always, as a first step, require you to talk to your bank to say, look, you know, what is the, you know, does the bank have risk appetite? You know, hopefully the bank will say, yes, we love you as an exporter, we'll give you whatever facility you need. Or they may feel, well, we like you, but probably not enough to give you the amount that you require. So actually, we can look to UKEF in the background to provide their guarantee. So, so moving on from, I guess, the debt and contingent liability products, we can also provide insurance, and we have an export insurance policy. This principally covers this principally is covering non-payment by the buyer risk. We can cover up to 90%, 95%, sorry, 95% of the contract. Now the rule there being, again, this is contract specific. We will require any exporter who tries to access our cover to have tested the commercial market. So we look to fill the gaps where the commercial market doesn't operate. But critically, our cover, we are not allowed to provide cover in high income countries. So if you've got a buyer in the USA or mainland Europe, we would not be able to cover that. We tend to look at the slightly more difficult countries. There are some eligibility criteria for exit. As I've said, just demonstrating a lack of availability in the private market. Businesses clearly need to be carrying on their activities in the UK. It's contract specific, and we do require there to be a minimum 20% UK content in any contract. Now, so we've spoken very much about the way that we, UK Export Finance, work with the banks, and we work with we're signed up with all the major banks. But in my role, I do come across a number of businesses who are finding some frustrations or some appetite restrictions with the bankers. And we can help with introductions. No, I would stress not recommendations, but with introductions to the alternative market. So, for example, we actually the end of last year, we signed up with Newable Business Loans, so they can actually access our guarantee, and they tend to operate probably in the lower end. They're happy to look at businesses, I think, with sort of turnover in the region of 1 million. Sometimes I think the banks tend to use our products for businesses which are turning over probably 2 million plus, in some cases higher than that. So we can help certainly with introductions where there is some frustration, but of course any lender will require, there'll be a focus on the balance sheet, cash flow forecasts, track record, business flows, etc. So we're more than happy to sort of act as a wider reference point. So I mentioned earlier our Export Finance Manager Network, so that we're all over the country. So we cover all of the United Kingdom, and here we have. So you'll see that we're actually divided into 3 areas. I'm part of London South East team, obviously, as I said at the outset, covering businesses in Surrey and Hampshire. But I mean, if there is, obviously unlikely with the Solent, it's unlikely you're going to have a business which is outside of that region. But clearly you may well have a head office which is in Birmingham or whatever, and we can obviously help with introductions to my colleagues. I do apologise, that's a little bit of a swift run through, but it hopefully gives you a flavour of what we do. But perhaps some of the value will become is in terms of any questions. If anyone does have any questions, be delighted to take them.
Thank you, Richard. That was fab. I don't have any specific questions. Really, it's for the businesses. So I don't know if anyone's got anything that they're a burning issue or something that they're not sure about. Or I suppose I could ask about ongoing support. So it's a question of businesses coming back to you on an individual basis to talk about their particular situation, and if they've got a piece of work or a contract potentially that's coming in that they're looking for support on, or do they build up a longer term relationship with your department?
That's a really good question, Lorna. No, it is very much it's very much a long-term relationship. You tend to find that where businesses have a working, what we like to see is businesses increase their turnover, therefore their working capital need will steadily increase over time, and working with their bank. Often the banks themselves have capacity to provide working capital support, but where they look to us, once they've started looking to us, that tends to be a longer term relationship. We see a lot of renewals. Having said that, there are some cases where business is faced with a transformational deal. For argument's sake, your turnover is 3 million. You've got a chance of a 1 million, £1.5 million contract. Then that's really when these sort of schemes do come into their own. But hopefully that would then develop a relationship which would continue into the future.
Okay, that's brilliant. And do you ever offer help? Is it always just a one-to-one relationship with a business, or is there ever help that comes in to support a consortium? If there's a number of businesses working together on a particular, it might be contracted supply chain, for example, and if is that a situation that occurs, or is it always that one-to-one relationship?
Yeah, no, again, that's another good point. So where we are providing support for, let's just say there's a construction project in Africa, there's a sort of a, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 million type. We would look to support the borrower. Now that borrower could well be a consortium. There would be, for those sort of amounts, huge amounts of due diligence in terms of the lend. And the banks themselves would need to be comfortable with that, and they'd look to us for their guarantee. So that is so in terms of those large consortia, yes. But what does tend to happen is that in order for our support to be given, we need there to be significant UK content. So below that, there will be a supply chain, which is individual UK companies. So we will look to provide support, to those individual names. So there's a UK balance sheet which we can look through to. Now, but this would naturally extend if you do have a consortia, and we would look to the bank principally to be comfortable with the underlying credit risk of that consortia. Yes, if that makes sense, then yes, we can support that as well. But it does have to be, it would be a UK company that we are supporting, one that's paying taxes in the UK, employing people and providing P&L benefit.
If they were, sorry for hogging this, other people will come in with questions in a minute, but if they're part of a consortium where, let's say there's 3 businesses and 2 of them are UK based, but one of them is based elsewhere in the world, is that an immediate blocker to the support for the 2 companies that are part of that working group, for want of a better word? Do all the constituent businesses have to be based in the UK and paying UK taxes? And I'm not saying that because I'm encouraging tax dodging. It's just when you talk to business, quite often they have, particularly if the sale is happening abroad, there is a foreign company that's part of that supply chain agreement.
Yeah, well, we look again, we'd really just apply that 20% test. So if there's a consortia, assuming that it's an equal consortia, then there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to support that.
Okay, sorry, that was maybe just a silly question, but
no, not at all. Because supply chains are far more sophisticated nowadays, and clearly we recognise that there are that there are foreign businesses, if you like, involved in manufacturing in the UK. I mean, I can probably go on. I mean, where we can provide cover, and this is under the general export facility, is if you are a business, if you're a UK registered business, so you've got people here in the UK, but you're for example, excuse me, sorry. But for example, you're sourcing your product from China, your core raw materials from China. You then, but you sell into, say, India. We don't expect those goods necessarily to touch UK shores. We can support that business model, provided that the P&L benefit is being recognised in the UK. So, if there's logistical type support, which UK businesses are providing, that too is eligible for our cover.
Okay, that's really helpful. Anybody else got any questions? No, you've blown their minds.
Well, what I would say, Lorna, I mean, if any, just talking to Hannah before we came on, I mean, if any business just wants to just drop me a mail, my details are here. You'll be circulating the slides, so
I will. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, please just drop me an email or give me a call, and obviously I'll endeavour to help or point you in the right direction. And
further to our conversation earlier on in the week, you'd be really keen to meet with businesses face to face as well. So what we'll probably do, I suspect it'll be in the new year now, but is arrange another session where people can come along and we can all be in the same room, because I think everyone prefers that sort of mode these days. And maybe people, I don't know, maybe we'll get different business that I'll access that offer as well. But we're very grateful for your time this morning anyway.
Okay, thank you. No, I say please do get in touch. And well, I've now got to work out how I get this off my screen. I guess I have to unshare.
You just have to, you just have to click on the share screen again, and it should go. The wonders of technology. This is where we all were in about. Do you remember when in the summer of 2020, and before you went to click share, people would go, "Now this might work, it might not work." It's just the highest level of jeopardy, I think.
And we're still saying, aren't we? We're still saying, you're on mute, you're on mute.
Oh, that's it.
Do I was going to say, I haven't done that for a while, but there you are, I've said it. You know what's going to happen now. Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll move over to Lisa. And Lisa works for SERCO, and she's going to talk to us about skills for the workforce funding. So Lisa, I don't think you're sharing a presentation as such. You're just going to talk to us. That's absolutely lovely. So over to you.
Thanks, Lorna. So so my name is Lisa Hutchings. I work for SERCO on the Skills Support for the Workforce programme as a partnerships coordinator. So my areas that I cover are West of England, Swindon and Wiltshire, and Solent. So the skills support for the workforce. So as employers, I can imagine that possibly all of you are struggling with recruitment and retention of staff, and wondering what can you do to improve this within your own business. I totally empathise with you. My husband, we're down in sunny Devon today, and we run a manufacturing business and struggle with this day in, day out. And you hear buzzwords like employer of choice. Well, what does employer of choice mean? Why do I want to come and work for you compared to, said business down the road? How can you make a difference? And one easy way of doing that is to invest in your team. I know you're all great business people, so I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs, but by investing in your team, and ensuring that you have a valued and skilled workforce, not only supports your recruitment and retention, but will support your business competitiveness as well. So I'm hearing you say things like, I don't have a training budget, we don't have the time, I can't release staff, and I totally get that, and I understand completely from where you're coming from. So how can we help? How can skills support for the workforce help you as an SME? So the programme is funded by the European Social Fund and the Education Skills Funding Agency, which is now the DFE. And that means that we can provide fully funded training to you as an SME. So that's at no cost. It will not cost you as an employer or your employees any money. The programme is there to support the upskilling of your workforce, helping them to progress within the workplace. And when we talk about progression, it could be things like, as a result of the training, your employee or you take on extra responsibility. Perhaps they go on to do further learning, maybe do a level 2, level 3, for example, or perhaps they then go on into an apprenticeship. So there's lots of ways that we look at that word, progression. It doesn't necessarily mean, i.e. from junior to senior, but it could be. The key thing that I want to emphasise today, so with this contract, the funding, because it's European Social Fund, is only in place until the end of March. So it comes to a complete end by March 2023. So any training that's you're going to do now, for example, must be finished by that end date. After March 2023, because of that European element, and obviously we're not in the EU anymore, the programme will come to a complete end. So after that, as I said, there will be no further support. There will probably be further skills funding available in Solent through other government means, but certainly not through the European Social Fund. So in terms of eligibility, so as an SME, so small, medium-sized enterprise, okay, you must employ less than 250 members of staff and be based within the Solent LEP area. Now, it could be that your registered office or your head office, it could be in London, for example, but as long as your branch address is in the Solent area, then you're eligible as a business. In terms of learners, so learners have to be 16 years of age plus and be employed by the business. So the only people that we cannot support are, unfortunately, apprentices and volunteers. So just back to the SME. The SME, as a business, you could be a sole trader, a partnership, a limited company. You could be a charity, a social enterprise. So, they're all eligible, but the learners have to be employed by the business, as I said, in 16 years of age plus, and have the right to live and work in the UK. In terms of the training, so within Solent, we have 7 different delivery partners that are delivering a whole variety of training from accredited training through to non-accredited training. And that could cover things like construction, we've got leadership and management, customer service, IT digital, there's a whole range of things that we can support. And how it works. So the training has to be a minimum of 7 hours, and they will vary, obviously, depending on the course or courses that you're wanting to do. And in terms of delivery, they can be online, it could be face-to-face, or it could be a blended approach by our partners. The training it's not limited to 1 course per person. It's quite flexible, to be fair. So, as long as that training is there to support that person in the workplace and help them to progress, it might be, as I said at the beginning, they might do maybe a level 2 certificate and then go on to do a level 3, as long as obviously there's enough time to achieve that before the end of March. And then also a training provider could work with your business to bespoke some training. So that's tailored to your business and your needs. In terms of what we can and cannot fund, the only things really that we cannot fund in our Solent contract is what we call license to practice. So anything that is statutory, like your first aid, your manual handling, forklifts, working at heights, all those statutory courses that you have to do as a business are not fundable under EU rules. And then previously, I'm not sure if you've seen any marketing, early days of this programme in Solent. So last November, we did have a restriction by the ESFA that we could only support level 3 upwards. The good news is this has now been changed. So the ESFA have relaxed that rule, so we can support from a level 1 upwards. I do have a list of the training provision that's on offer. So I think if Lorna, obviously, after this meeting, shares my contact details with you, you know, by all means, feel free to email me and I can share more information. In terms of process, just very quickly of a process. So, yeah, whilst the training is completely funded, fully funded, as I said, at no cost to you, there will be some paperwork to complete. Now, we make this as easy as possible for you. I've been on both ends of this contract, so not only have I am I working for SERCO as a partnerships coordinator, I've also worked for a training provider managing a SERCO contract. So I have completed the paperwork that you would need to do. So I fully understand both sides of the process. So the first step of that process is the training provider would meet with, say, for example, Hannah, and would complete a training needs analysis. So within the training needs analysis, they'll talk about your business in more depth, and then within that, there'll be a company training plan that sets out your immediate training needs now. And that's just saying, you know, November, December, maybe you take on a new recruit that needs upskilling. We can add their training needs to the company training plan without having to go through another TNA, for example. So it's quite a fluid document. So once the TNA is done, then there is a couple of documents to complete for your learners. And again, that's completed via an online or telephone discussion meeting with the training provider. And that doesn't take very long. But once the documents are completed and signed, then you're on the programme. And as I said, you can access as much training as, you know, as is relevant, and obviously within the timescales of the programme that we've got left. So that is really a very quick overview of skill support for the workforce. And as I said, you know, the key message that I want to say to you all, and you may have seen some on our LinkedIn marketing page, is that, you know, the contract is only in place now until March 2023, so we're in the final 5 months of the programme, and we want to make sure that, you know, we are fully spending this EU money across Solent, because once that March date's gone, it will be gone, and we'll have to hand back any money that's left over to Europe, and we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we give it to the SMEs in Solent. So yeah, so Lorna will kindly circulate my details. And then, you know, please feel free to get in touch. Happy to go through it in more detail with you and see how we can support you through the programme. Thanks, Lorna. I don't know if there are any questions. Happy to take any questions if there are any now.
I'm absolutely certain there will be. It looks like Hannah's got one ready to go. There we go. Hannah, over to you.
Hi all. It's only just an underlining of how straightforward the process is. I had a conversation with Lisa not very long ago, and she and her associates have just got the ball rolling so smoothly. So we're yet to start the training, that's imminent, but just to say it isn't a headache. They do pretty much everything for you. So it's just to say it's not an extra task on your shoulders, it's just an extra string to your bow, I suppose is the best description.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hannah, for that endorsement. And you know, and as I said, you know, at the beginning, it's taking opportunity now of that fully funded training, because we don't know what future funding and the training will look like. So, you know, this is a key opportunity to upskill your workforce now whilst the funding is there in place. Thanks,
just
Hannah.
a process question. Apologies if you've said this and I missed it. I wrongly assumed that this was only for existing employees, but you talked about if you wanted to take on extra people in November and you wanted training to be part of that offer. So it's just to clarify that. The funding comes to an end in March. Now, does that mean that the training has to be completed by then or has to have started by then?
So in answer to your first question about new recruits, so as long as that new recruit is employed by the business, there's no specification on you know, i.e. their length of service. So it could be for a new starter who's just started and employed, or it could be for someone who's, you know, within your business for 10 years. So there's no kind of timescale on that. And then in terms of the March deadline, so training has to be completed by the end of March.
So these are short, sharp skills improvement courses rather than long qualifications.
Yeah, so, you know, they are the shorter courses now that our partners are focused on purely because of the timescale. So what we're not going to be doing is obviously supporting you with a i.e. an NVQ, that will take, 12 months. Yeah, so it's short courses. And the emphasis being that, if there's something that you need and you're not quite sure whether it's fundable, please do contact us, because, I can then go back to our delivery partners and say, look, I've got an employer, he, maybe you want some leadership and management training, it could be non-accredited, for example, so not certificated, but you might want to create a program that maybe includes, I don't know, perhaps some people management, a bit of conflict, a bit of, performance management, or whatever it be. But we could, build that course with that content relevant for your business, and work with you in terms of timescales, the delivery model, because, in business, we're also busy, aren't we? And having to release staff for training, it can be a barrier. So, that's work with you and look at, right, okay, so, what are your shift patterns? When is the training best for you? That's have a look at, make it work, really. So you have that opportunity.
And it's a question of attending one of your delivery partners' premises, is it, or is it something that can happen at the workplace?
No, we can certainly deliver it in the workplace. It could be, we could deliver it via Teams, for example, or we could do a bit of both. So it doesn't have to be, you guys coming to the training provider. We'll deliver to you. Yeah.
Right, and last one from me. I've always got questions. I was always the one in school that asked the question that other people wanted to ask and no one did. Then someone would go, oh, yeah, it's all right. Lorna never stops talking. She'll ask the question. The delivery partners locally. So are you able to tell us who they are? Is it possible? Can you tell us who we've got in the Solent that are participating in the scheme, or is it just a question? The reason I ask is I had a conversation with Eastleigh College recently, and they were talking about this funding. So are they one of your delivery partners, or are they doing it separately?
Eastleigh College are not a delivery partner. I'm not sure whether they perhaps are involved in a different scheme. The 7 providers, you're going to test me now, Lorna, aren't you?
Yeah.
Who we've got. So we've got construction wise, so trade assessments, SB skills, and construction skills people. They're not all based in Solent, so some are outside of the area. Then we've got Logistica, the test group. Now I've got 2 more to go. A loco motivation, but loco for short, and HIT training. So that's the 7 providers that are in the area, or not in the area, but on the skill support for the workforce contract. Yeah.
Okay. And there's no maximum number of employees who can access training this way in a particular organisation, or is there?
No, it's not limited. The only thing that we'd need to do, so if you had 20 plus members of staff who wanted training, we would just need to get that approved by the ESFA and LEP. But that's a very quick, easy process that goes through our performance managers. It's not sector specific either. So so we can, we can support over the 20. We just need to get that approved first. And or it could be just one. It's fine if you just want to put a single one through as well. Yeah.
It to me, to an outsider, it seems it's almost too good to be true. It's a one-time offer. Let's get a bit more money out of Europe whilst we can. Let's definitely not send it back. Yeah. But we've got businesses, and the link that you made at the beginning to what a difficult recruitment climate we're in currently, and how it's hard enough getting new people in. But you don't want to lose people that have been with you some time. But it may be that economically, at this point in time, it's just not possible for the business to give generous pay reviews. So this is a way of offering an enrichment to a member of staff to help them with their sense of worth and such like. But
absolutely,
it's extraordinary. Anyway, yeah, and so it's the 31st of March, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. End of March is the final date. Jane, you've got your hand up. Hiya.
Yeah. Hi, Lisa. Hi. So I know you know Lisa, and Lorna will know, but just for anyone that doesn't, I'm Jane Syme. I work for the Solent LEP Growth Hub team, so the business support service within the Solent LEP, and we often refer businesses across to SERCO and to the Skills Support for the Work programme. I would add to Hannah's endorsement. It's Lisa and the team are super helpful, and really is, Lorna, I would say a bit of a no-brainer, especially like you said in this climate, because to be able to show your workforce that they are of value to you and that you value their development is, I think, a really good way, not just for them but also for your business to try to sort of retain them and show them that you value them in that way. I do have a little question. So with the support available, Lisa, can sole directors access it? So we often speak to businesses who are registered as sole traders, they're really early stages, and actually things like digital skills support might be really useful, and they haven't perhaps yet quite got to that stage where they're registering as a private limited company. So is that okay?
Sole traders are absolutely fine. Yeah, they're eligible as well.
And charities, do you have to?
Yeah, so it could be SMEs, as long as they're under 250 employees. So it could include sole traders, partnerships, limited companies, charities, social enterprises, CICs, etc. So yeah, they're all eligible, as long as they're within the Solent LEP area, obviously. And then within your charities and social enterprises, well, I suppose business as well, you may have volunteers. I'm striking that out. But if you have any volunteers, unfortunately, volunteers are not eligible because they have to be employed by the setting. Yeah. So
you have to be as a sole. You have to be employed as a sole director of your self-employment.
Yeah, as long as you're registered. Yeah, with HMRC, it's fine. Yeah.
Perfect. No, that's really good. I think that that's it's such a useful scheme, and hopefully we can get as many people through to you guys before March as possible.
Any support would be great. Obviously Solent was the last contract we took on. I think it was only last November. We've supported many businesses already, but again, as I said, we don't want to give the money back, so that's support as many SMEs as we can. Thanks, Jane.
Absolutely. No. Well, I think let's have a chat as well separately about how we can push some messaging out and kind of make sure that businesses are aware that time's running out on this, because it's like you said, don't want to give it back.
Send you an email separately. Thanks, Jane.
Yeah.
And I think
sure.
George was going to ask a question. Hi, George. Nice to meet you. Hello.
You too. Hi, I'm George Thompson from GT Green Technologies. So we're developing wind propulsion systems for commercial shipping. It was a quick question. I think you probably answered it, but if you're sort of employing contractors rather than putting people on payroll, are they also covered, or it really has to be people on the payroll that apply or eligible?
Yeah, it's the latter, George. So those it has to be people on your payroll.
Right.
In terms of any contractors, if they're self-employed within their own right and based in the Solent, they would be eligible as a sole trader in their own right.
Right. Yeah.
But for you, any employees that are on your payroll scheme, then they would be eligible.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
George.
And there's no issues with eligibility dependent on current highest level of qualification, because very often with the adult skills budget, you could only access funding for training if you didn't already have a full level 3 or whatever, because these are not long courses and qualifications. It's short, sharp upskilling. Does that mean that you might have a PhD? Could you still be eligible as an employee of a small business?
Yeah, absolutely. So you may have a degree in marine biology, for example, but you might not have any leadership and management skills or qualifications. So just because you have a degree in, say, marine biology, that doesn't preclude you from the scheme, because you're learning new skills in a completely different subject. We'd be a little bit worried if you applied, not that we have this course, by the way, this is only just an example, but if you had a degree in marine biology and then wanted to do a level 2, now obviously that wouldn't happen, but certainly in a different subject area, then that's absolutely fine. That's a really good point, actually, Lorna. Thanks for raising that.
Okay. Once an FE, always an FE. You see, you ask these questions, it's ingrained. But are they eligible? I can see the benefits for if a small business is going through a transformational period. Let's say we all know the maritime sector is absolutely thriving. So let's say they're their actual business, they're employing new members of staff. You can imagine the retaining the ethos of that business when it was very small, when it was a micro business, and everyone was there from the beginning, where you brought your own coffee and all the rest of it. But the business has gone through a period of exponential growth. You've brought in some more experts, and perhaps what the owners or the leaders of the business want to do is to instill leadership and management in a common approach, that it would be really worthwhile to bring that together as a team development as well as individual development. I could see that, for example, as an option.
Absolutely, and we we have examples of businesses across the area, not just Solent, but that's a manufacturing business, typically where the workforce may have been in long time employed. You may have got someone who's been in that business for say 30 years or whatever, and then has been promoted because of length of service, really, and they what we call the accidental kind of promotion to leadership, and may not have those skills behind them. So we've supported quite a few businesses with that scenario as an example. Things like customer service as well. It's been quite popular, but certainly leadership and management skills. But I can send you, I don't know if I'll send you the list of provision, Lorna. I think I sent it before, but I'll send you it again just so you've got the absolutely updated version. And whilst that is a list of provision, obviously, it's not kind of the be all and end all list. If there is something there that, or there isn't something there, should I say, that a business is looking at, then again, urge those conversations with me, because we could be then having those discussions with our training provider to say, can you do this? Or those conversations.
I think it would be quite useful. I mean, I echo what Jane's saying. Obviously, we both work for Solent LEP, so we have a huge database of businesses, and we need to be sharing this out amongst those. And then I think the other thing that would be useful, I don't know if Jane would agree, but I think examples of businesses, and we don't need to know the business name, but where their particular bespoke request has been met, rather than the 15 headline courses that the customer service and the leadership and management and so on. Because I think there's, I've heard it said often that your chief engineer gets promoted and he's an they are an extraordinary engineer, and they get promoted, and then they find themselves away from the tools, away from the sharp end, if you like, and find that transition themselves. And they were absolutely the person that knows everything within the business, but you put them, as you said, not accidental promotion, but you can see why that promotion would happen. But where is the underpinning support to help them? I had a conversation with my sister yesterday, who's recently had quite a big promotion, and she comes from buying, but she's found herself in a strategic position rather than a operational, if you like, and suddenly there's far more plate spinning, and she's struggling to have a line of sight on all of these things when she was used to being a doer and dealing with half of them and dealing with them herself. Thank you very much. And she's finding that transition difficult. But I think examples of where you've come up with a bespoke solution would be really useful. And then I think it would be a good idea for us just to keep popping this out in the newsletter with the links and so on. And likewise for you, Richard. And we've got a large network now that needs to share this with, and I will be sharing the recording from this meeting. So I was just thinking how different this morning's meeting's been. Actually, we haven't done one like this before. I know we don't have 50 people in the meeting, but I don't think that matters. I think the interaction and the fact that we're recording it as a resource is extraordinary. So I'm really grateful for your time, from both of you. Is there any other questions? Does anyone else have any questions? We're in danger of finishing one of these meetings early. That never happens. But everyone's busy. Richard, anything else that you wanted to add, or?
No, thank you. It's really good to get an insight actually to some of the fundamentals which are impacting businesses in the region. Obviously, my role is principally on financing, and that so I mean, certainly if any businesses here do want to have a discussion around that, it is really helpful involve your finance people as well, you know, finance director or whatever, then absolutely delighted to talk to anyone who'd like to get in touch. So then thank you for setting this up, Lorna. Thank you.
No problem. Jane, I'm just thinking that it might be a good idea to share this more broadly with some of our other businesses that we've got out. I think maritime first always, but the Solent LEP's got a broader reach than that, hasn't it? So
yeah, and I mean, obviously, you know, yeah, we're in you know, contact with Richard and Lisa, you know, and both you know, services and are referring to, you know, to both fairly regularly in terms of the businesses that get in touch with the Growth Hub and you know, that we support. But I think what might be useful, if it's okay with you, Lorna, is just if you want me to give you a quick 5 minutes update, because we have just launched a few other business support programs that some of the businesses on here might be interested in. I won't sort of go into too much detail. There is information on the Solent LEP website on the Business Support Hub. But just to summarise, we have just launched a new program called the Tech Growth Programme. So this is a mentoring program that we've launched in partnership with MUK Solent. You know, a cluster of tech businesses within the Solent region, all sorts of different tech businesses, and tech, you know, covers such a huge spectrum of different activity. But essentially, if you're a kind of an early stage tech business and you want to benefit from the insights and the experience of a business leader that's operated in the tech space, we have a number of mentor profiles now on the webpage. You can have a bit of a look through their profiles and their information, and you can see if you think there would be a, you know, a worthwhile connection there to be made. And these mentors are offering their time free of charge, so it's a really good resource. We are building on our, you know, on our pool of mentors. I think there are sort of 5 or 6 so far on there, and they're quite diverse in their experience. So have a little look on there if you think that could be useful to you. The other, so the second recently launched programme is the Solent SME Sustainability Support Programme. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And as the name suggests, it's all about supporting small businesses to bring sustainability into their you know, their growth plans and their business plan more broadly. So we're delivering this in partnership with a small consultancy based in Lymington called True Horizon. We've worked with them on a previous sort of similar programme last year, and got really good feedback from small businesses who said, you know, they sort of speak in a very practical way. You know, the advice that we've got has really helped us to work out actually what we can prioritise, because we can't do everything, you know, straight away. Much as we'd like to, you know, be a completely you know, pure and perfect business environmentally, you know, we need to work out for our business what are the wins in the short term, and what we can sort of bring into our longer term plan, what certifications are most relevant to us perhaps, and all sorts of things that they can help a business to bring together in terms of a bit of an action plan. And that's made up of one-to-one support and group support as well, and workshops. So have a little look at that if that's something that you want to prioritise as a business. And then the final one to mention is a creative growth programme. And I mean, I don't want to say that there are, well, I think again, the creative sector is quite a spectrum as well. So I can think of a few businesses actually that I've spoken to recently that would be within the marine and maritime sector and would be classed as a creative business, you know, given the area of work that they're in. So if you feel that you do fit into that sector and you'd like some strategic support to help grow your business, again, there is some new support available, both one-to-one and specific topic-focused workshops. You can have a little look at what workshops are going on and where, and on the web page again. So have a little look. And then the other thing to just quickly mention, which isn't a new thing, but I think is always relevant to raise awareness of, is that the Growth Hub team have access to a funding search portal, and we can with you, conduct a funding search in a very tailored way. So if you've got a project, and you're looking for investment, as well as signposting, to specific, government or local schemes, such as you've heard about today, we can also conduct that tailored funding search for you using our system that we subscribe to. So that's just another thing to bear in mind, as and when you're making sort of significant capital investment, perhaps we can go through a search with you and see what that report brings up. It won't just bring up grants, unfortunately, but you can look at various options and see what works for you at that time. And I could probably go on and on, Lorna, but I won't hijack the meeting completely. Do get in touch with the Growth Hub team if you want to have a chat with us about the support available. We're always here and always happy to have a chat.
Is there an email you can pop in the chat, please, Jane?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry,
So
Richard,
the easiest way to, yeah, I'll pop it in the chat. The easiest way to make an appointment with an advisor, and again, it's all, this is a fully funded service, so it's all free for you to access, is just to email inquiries@solentlep.org.uk, and our friendly administration team will get in touch with you and work out, a convenient time for you to have a chat with us and talk through your challenges and what support you might need.
Perfect. Richard, you popped your hand up.
Yeah, just a very quick question for Jane, I think, in terms of mentioning the financing support, Jane. Are you seeing a number of inquiries based on the Solent Freeport?
Yes.
I've certainly put one or two people in touch with your email address, but I just to get a general feel. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've certainly seen an increase in the last few months, businesses that are interested in what opportunities there are for them to be, benefiting from some of those tax incentives and so on that have been publicised around the Freeport. So a lot of the inquiries are coming through the Solent Freeport website, which is obviously a separate entity from the LEP itself. But we are handling those inquiries within the Growth Hub team. We can clarify, information that is provided on the Solent Freeport website where required, and we can usually, the best thing to do when businesses want a more detailed discussion about the opportunities is to direct them to the site contacts, about, to talk in a bit more detail about the specific incentives and, what those opportunities might look like. So, yeah, there's a limit to, how much expertise our team has when it comes to the Freeport. I feel like it's growing all the time, but yeah, certainly the site contacts at each of the tax sites are ready and willing to have those conversations as well.
No, thanks. Yeah.
And just a point of, I often talk to businesses, and I know Jane and I have had this conversation before, where the businesses are not interested in what's geographically in the Solent LEP region, unfortunately, when it comes to offers that we can make. So Lisa, when you were saying this morning, this is a Solent offer. Richard, you're obviously working across the south of England, and Jane clearly is working for Solent LEP. But just to clarify, so if a business has a site in the Solent, if its head office is in the Solent, but it has sites that are outside of the Solent, how would that work? I know how it would work with Jane, and I'm guessing, Jane, that you would refer people to your peers in other LEPs that are neighbouring us. But Richard, I'm guessing it doesn't make an awful lot of difference to you in the work that you're doing.
No, I mean, just for reasons of practicality and logistics, we have to sort of, allocate an export finance manager to a particular business. So the general rule of thumb is if there is an active head office in region, where, effectively where the finance people, the executives sit, then, if that's a business in Hampshire, then that should come to me, even if the manufacturing is in Wales or something. However, I mean, clearly there are some businesses which really, the main thrust of what they do is a manufacturing capability, and we'll follow them as well. So there may be businesses which have got sort of brass plates in London, but actually they manufacture down in you know, down in Sussex or Surrey or whatever. So no, we tend to just take a very pragmatic view. But the important thing is, whatever businesses reach out to us, we will find someone to talk to them. It may or may not be me, but you know, we all what's the word? We're not. It's not like I'm working for a bank where you're completely motivated by profit and loss. You know, we're here to support exporters, and you know, we've actually got a very good team down the southeast. We get on. Yeah, everyone really does cooperate and get on well. So you just come through me if you've got any questions, and I'll make sure that, you know, the business is linked into the right person. So it probably will be me. So
Perfect. And Lisa?
Yeah, for us, so for example, you know, should your business have another branch in, I'm going to say Plymouth, the other port down this way, then we have across the UK 18 contracts, skills support for the workforce contracts. So i.e. we have one in Devon and Somerset. So if you've got a sister company in Plymouth, then we could support them under skills support for the workforce contract in Devon. So southwest wise, and I'll send a list of those 18, well, it's 19 altogether, including Solent contract areas, but southwest further down. So obviously, as I said, Swindon and Wiltshire, west of England, Dorset, Somerset and Devon. We don't have skills support for the workforce in Cornwall though. And then obviously further up Birmingham and other areas as well.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you. So with that, I think if there's no more questions, I would say a couple of things. One is that's been quite a different session for us this morning, extraordinarily useful and helpful. And I'm really grateful to all three of our speakers this morning. Thank you, Jane, also. The next meeting is an in-person one again, and it's at VentureFest on the 17th of November. We are running an innovation panel session from 9 till 10:30. We have a code that you can use on their website booking system in order to get in free, because normally the tickets have to be paid for. So I will share that with the post-meeting comms in the normal way. So it's 9 till 10:30 and it's at the Aegeus Bowl in Hedge End. That's November. December, it's an Isle of Wight special actually, and we're going over to the island. We're going to be hosting the meeting at the UK Sailing Association's premises. It's on the 15th of December. It's a little later to allow people time to get over there because it's an in-person meeting. It's 9:30 until 11, and that's about engaging more closely with island-based businesses. So that's what's happening for the rest of the year. I'll make sure I share that with you. It's our awards tomorrow night. I can't really think of anything else at the moment apart from this awards that we're pulling off tomorrow night at the Grand Harbour Hotel in Southampton. I'm hoping that that's going to be a terrific evening. 250 people coming, 12 awards. And we're really looking forward to it. I'll also be really happy on Saturday when it's all done. But right now, that's a big thing for us. And we're working on a new website. In fact, I had a meeting with the website developers yesterday. So there's lots happening with Maritime UK Solent. Thank you so much to our speakers this morning. We're really grateful for your time and your support. I've recorded the meeting. I will share that and we'll see you all again soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks, Lorna.
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you. Bye bye now.
Take care,
Bye for
everyone.
now.
Bye. Bye.